Detroit done through and through. Welcome back, Steve. Here, I got another. This is kind of a controversial topic. I think I'm going to divide the fan base a little bit. I think most people will stand with me. I'm going to give my thoughts and opinions at the end. But I was just scrolling through Twitter the other day, and I saw this tweet from the Detroit Times. And it says, Detroit Lions wide receiver Amon-Ra St. Brown is marked as a potential candidate to break Hall of Famer Calvin Johnson's single-season receiving record. Now, the Detroit Times, I got to give you guys a little shout out because I love this idea. And as you can see in the tweet, it did not have a link. So I'm assuming you guys wrote it or put the idea out there. I don't know. I appreciate you guys standing out there and putting something into the world that's a little controversial, because anytime you talk certain Detroit Lions, people become very sensitive, like Barry Sanders, Calvin Johnson. I've even seen some Stafford supporters still sticking around. But it's a great question, a great idea. I don't know who marked Amon-Ra St. Brown as a candidate, because like I said, there was no link in there. There was no, it didn't take you to another web page or an article or anything. So I'm assuming you guys just put it out there. But I like stuff like that gets my mind thinking, gets me wondering, spin the wheels a little bit. Sometimes that's what we come on social media, YouTube, to do, is to be entertained and kind of blossom your mind into thinking outside of the box a little bit. So let's just take a look at Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's been one of the most underrated and underappreciated and highest producing wide receivers in the last 4 years. Coming off of his best season this past year, where he had 119 catches, 1,515 yards, 10 touchdowns, vocal point of the offense. Look, I love Amon-Ra St. Brown. I think he's the ultimate professional, a pro's pro, carries himself the right way. You're never going to have to worry about any off-field stuff with Amon-Ra St. Brown. He's just going to show up, put the work in, and help the Detroit Lions win. He's kind of been the face of the franchise a little bit too. One of Brad Holmes' sleeper draft picks in the 4th round a few years ago. Not many people were expecting a lot of things. Our wide receiver room at the time he was drafted was basically just a stack of dead bodies, and we didn't know what we were going to be getting in Amon-Ra St. Brown, and he absolutely started blowing up. I love St. B. And like I said, when it comes to Calvin Johnson, Barry Sanders, Matthew Stafford, like a lot of the legends of the Detroit Lions, you got to be very careful when you guys are throwing out those types of names. So shout out to you guys. I appreciate it. Usually when I put a tweet out, I'm calling someone an idiot. That's not the road I want to go. Shout out to you guys. Great piece. I got to get some people talking about it, and it got my mind thinking. Calvin Johnson, the absolute most dominant wide receiver I think I've ever seen. And I want to share a story with you guys real quick about Calvin Johnson. My Calvin Johnson experience in person. Not the first time. I've been to hundreds of Detroit Lions games, especially the last few years being a season ticket holder. But I can't remember what year it was. Someone can help me out. I didn't look it up. Me and my buddy were at the Detroit Lions game when they were playing the Cincinnati Bengals. Calvin Johnson made one of the greatest catches I think I've ever seen in person. He caught it over, I think, 3 or 4 Cincinnati Bengal defenders. We were sitting in one end zone. The catch happened in the far end zone. I looked at my buddy and I said, there's absolutely no way in hell he just caught that. I look up, I see the referee signaling touchdown. They show it on the jumbo screen. I just said, holy shit, that's one of the greatest catches I've ever seen in person. Unfortunately, the Detroit Lions went on to lose that game in overtime by a field goal, if I remember right. But still, just to see moments like that from Megatron, Calvin Johnson, the absolute best Detroit Lions wide receiver of all time, not even close. I'm kind of teeing it up for how I feel about this topic. So Calvin Johnson's single season receiving record that they're mentioning here is one it's going to be tough to beat. We're looking at the 2012 year, 122 receptions, 1,964 receiving yards. Just absolutely insane that he only had 5 touchdowns that year. I remember him getting tackled at the 1 yard line, what I think like 15 times, though. It just seemed like he was just always getting tackled at the 1. 1,964 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown had 1,515. So we're talking about a difference of what, like 400, a little more than 400 yards. Amon-Ra St. Brown, like I said, also had only 3 less catches. That's how good Calvin Johnson was. Now, I've seen a lot of people calling Amon-Ra St. Brown the slot god and the slant route god and all that because he's just known for slant routes. And I'm not going to argue and say that you're wrong. I mean, I do think he does a lot more in the offense. I think he can run all of the routes. He's just not a physical presence like Calvin Johnson was. Like, there's nothing wrong with catching a slant for 4 yards when you need 3 on first down. Like, that's perfectly fine. You want to call him a possession receiver? That's fine with me. I don't care. I think he's the most underrated wide receiver in the NFL. He might not have that blazing speed like a Tyreek Hill, but he's good for the Detroit Lions. He's exactly what Jared Goff needs. He plays complementary football with the type of quarterback we have. Calvin Johnson was a different animal. He averaged 16.1 yards per catch in that 2012 season. That is insane. He was just more of a big play. Like Matthew Stafford could just chuck the ball 40 yards. Calvin Johnson would come down with it, run for 10, get a 50-yard touchdown. That's not really Amon-Ra St. Brown's game. Amon-Ra St. Brown is a possession receiver. Like, every now and then he'll make a play. He'll bust off a long one, but he's not going over 3 defenders to go get a ball. I'm not trying to knock him. It's just saying that's just his style of play compared to Calvin Johnson. It's night and day, but they both can be very effective. I'm not trying to take one away from the other. Calvin Johnson is one of the greatest receivers of all time. Like, when you just look at like who's dominated the NFL receiver-wise, like Jerry Rice, obviously the GOAT. And then next, probably Randy Moss, in my opinion. And then third, I'm going to say Calvin Johnson. I think he's a top 5 receiver of all time. I'm not ready to say that about Amon-Ra St. Brown yet. I think he'll be top 5 for the Detroit Lions. Obviously, I think he's number 2 right now. I don't think he'll ever surpass Calvin Johnson. It's a great topic. It's a great question. But almost 2,000 yards receiving in the NFL is a ton. And what's crazy is, like I said, Amon-Ra St. Brown only had 3 less receptions than Calvin Johnson did in that 2012 year. So it's not like he doesn't get the catches or the looks or the targets. It's just the style of play they have is completely different. Like I said, Calvin Johnson would go run a 50-yard deep post and catch a touchdown. I don't see Amon-Ra St. Brown doing that unless there's a blown coverage. Calvin Johnson would do it regularly. Every Sunday, he would blow by someone, high point the ball over someone. He was just a different breed, but I'm not trying to take away from what St. Brown does, man. He's very, very focal to this offense. I've said it before. It's been a little bit, but I remember a couple years ago, I think it was 2 seasons ago, we played the New England Patriots in New England, and Amon-Ra St. Brown was banged up. He didn't play that game, and our offense was absolutely putrid without him. I think we got shut out that game. It was ugly. We were very one-dimensional. It's just that it shows you that that's how important Amon-Ra St. Brown is to this offense in 2024. Calvin Johnson just played a different style of football. That's really all I have to say about it. So do I think Amon-Ra St. Brown can surpass Calvin Johnson's single season rushing or receiving stats of 1,965 yards? I don't see it happening, guys, because I think Amon-Ra's best years were last year and the years going forward. So it's a very small window if he's going to do it. Listen, I would love to be wrong. I would love to see Amon-Ra St. Brown go out and get 1,965 receiving yards. I just don't think he has that type of dominance. Like, he's dominant in a lot of ways with his route running, his catching, his ability to find soft spots in the zone. Just what Calvin Johnson did was just, we can't keep taking away from these legends and trying to compare them, in my opinion. I just think like we try to, it's kind of diminishing to Calvin Johnson to put it out there, but it is a fun topic. It's fun to think about. It gets the wheels spinning a little bit. It just is what it is, guys. So leave it in the comments. Let me know how you feel about the topic. Hit that like button, stick around, subscribe. I'll be back later with another episode.